This channel presents. The air in the small Italian restaurant was thick with tension. At the table sat two men who had come here to conduct an important piece of business. For one of them, it would be a transaction that would change his life forever. For the other, it would be the last deal he ever made. Our story begins 3 months earlier in a dingy apartment building on the outskirts of Milan. Here lived Angelo Moretti, a 29-year-old man who was having trouble making ends meet. He had recently gotten divorced and was left with the sole responsibility of taking care of his 6-year-old son. With bills piling up and his son needing new shoes for school, Angelo needed money. Bad. Then he got a call from his cousin Marco, who offered him a proposition. Marco was a middleman in the world of Italian organized crime and had an offer for Angelo. A wealthy businessman needed something delivered to him in Rome. It wasn't anything dangerous, just a package. All Angelo had to do was transport it there. The money was so good, Angelo couldn't refuse. On the day of the delivery, Angelo was given the package and driven to a train station by Marco. From there, he took a train to Rome without any issues. There, he met a man named Enzo Ferrari and handed him the package. Enzo paid him the exorbitant amount of cash and sent him on his way. Back in Milan, Marco was furious. Enzo had paid him half of what was agreed upon, claiming that the package was empty. Now Marco wanted Angelo to go back to Rome and figure out what had happened. When Angelo confronted Enzo, he was taken to this very restaurant where they were now sitting. Across from Angelo was Bruno Fappani, a feared member of the Sicilian Mafia. Bruno wasn't just any ordinary mafioso, though. He was a man who played the game better than anyone else. His cunning and intelligence made him extremely powerful within the organization. But as the years passed, Bruno grew tired of the violence and bloodshed. He decided to leave the mafia and start a new life as a legitimate businessman. He invested his ill-gotten gains into a chain of restaurants and became quite successful. However, his past always seemed to catch up to him. And when the package was delivered to him, he knew that he was being targeted once again. In reality, the package contained evidence of a huge money laundering scheme that Bruno had been working on. Someone was trying to blackmail him. And when he realized that the police weren't involved, he called in the only people he could trust, the people who were like family to him. The men that had once been his brothers in arms were now his competition, but they were also his best chance at survival. Angelo may have been just a lowly courier, but he had unwittingly stumbled into a world that he didn't understand. He had no idea that the package he was carrying contained the key to bringing down one of Italy's most powerful crime families. But as the stakes rose and the body count grew, he found himself in over his head. Now, as Bruno sits across from Angelo, he knows that the young man doesn't know he's in danger, but he also knows that he can't let him walk away alive. Angelo is too much of a loose end. If he talks, everything that Bruno has worked for could come crashing down around him. As they eat their meal in silence, Bruno knows that the time will come soon when he will have to make his move. But for now, he needs to keep Angelo close to make sure that he doesn't try anything funny. He knows that the young man is desperate for money, but he also knows that he's not a killer. However, Bruno's facade is starting to crumble. Angelo can sense that something isn't right. He can feel the tension in the room and he can see the anger in Bruno's eyes. He knows that if he makes one wrong move, he might not get another chance. Then suddenly, a loud bang comes from outside. Angelo jumps in his seat, his heart racing. He looks around the room for the source of the noise, but he can't see anything. Bruno remains calm, but Angelo can tell that the older man is tense. Before either of them can speak, another bang echoes through the restaurant. This time it's followed by the sound of breaking glass. Angelo is terrified. He doesn't know what's happening, but he can sense that Bruno is about to make his move. He tries to stand up, but Bruno's men are on him in an instant, pinning him down and tying his hands behind his back. Angelo struggles against them, but it's no use. They are too strong for him. He looks over at Bruno, who is standing up, his face dark with rage. "You were a fool to come here," Bruno says to him, his voice low and dangerous. "I should have known that you wouldn't be able to resist. The temptation of the money." Angelo tries to protest, but Bruno cuts him off. "Don't bother lying. I know what you're thinking. You thought that you could steal from me and get away with it, but you're wrong. You're nothing more than a pawn in my game," Bruno says, his eyes boring into Angelo's. Angelo feels a surge of anger. He's been used and manipulated by Bruno, but he's not going to take it lying down. You may have won this round, Bruno, he says defiantly, but I'll be back. You haven't seen the last of me. Bruno smiles cruelly. That's right, Angelo. You're free to go now, but don't think that you can escape me. I'll find you again. When I do, you won't be so lucky this time, he says, his voice dripping with menace. Angelo is led out of the restaurant by Bruno's men. As he walks, he can hear the shouts and laughter of the other customers. He looks back at the restaurant, his heart pounding in his chest. As he makes his way home, Angelo can't stop thinking about what Bruno said to him. He knows that the older man is dangerous, and he's worried that he won't be able to protect himself. He thinks about getting a gun, but he has never handled a firearm before, and he doesn't know where he would even get one. He arrives home and locks the door behind him. He tries to shake off the events of the day, but he can't seem to relax. He hears every creak and groan of the old house and jumps at every unexpected sound. As the night wears on, Angelo becomes increasingly paranoid. He thinks that he hears footsteps outside his window, and he sees shadows everywhere. He tries to convince himself that it's all in his head, but he can't help but worry. Then suddenly he hears a loud bang at his front door. He jumps out of bed and hides in the closet, his heart racing. He can hear the door rattling and the voice of Bruno calling his name. Angelo, open this door. I know you're in there, Bruno shouts. You can't hide from me forever. Angelo is terrified. He knows that Bruno has found him and he doesn't know what to do. The door is kicked in and Bruno enters the room. It's over, Angelo, Bruno says. I finally got you. Angelo is shaking with fear. He's never been in this much danger before. Bruno takes a step towards him and Angelo screams. Then suddenly, Bruno stops in his tracks. He looks down at the floor and then back at Angelo. What the hell, he says. Angelo peeks out of the closet and sees that Bruno is staring at something on the floor. He slowly gets out of the closet and walks over to Bruno. What is it? Angelo asks. Bruno looks up at him, his face pale. I don't know, he says. There was supposed to be a gun here, but now it's gone. Indeed, on the floor where Bruno had stood was an empty holster. Where was the gun? Did someone set a trap for Bruno? What was their game? Angelo and Bruno look at each other, both realizing that they had been played. In the end, it was the deal, not the gun, that was silent. Thank you for watching.